I want to come back to a question from Anthony Donovan, leading activist in New York, saying, Dan, what effective actions do you support today to de-escalate the tension with China and both our commitments to build nuclear weapons?
Yeah, I wish I knew. That's something I'll have to learn more about. Joe, I know you're in this Commission for a Sane Policy with respect to China, US policy. A number of other people have the same thing with Russia. And it's almost like combating people who make racist comments. Do you allow them to do it in public, or at the cost of causing a stir and losing relationships and so forth, do you call them on it? Well, how about comments about China being our enemy? How did China get to be our enemy? What is that? And for that matter, Russia. Both effectively capitalist countries, that are not trying to challenge us ideologically, particularly to the extent that ever was a reality. And not now. We don't want a Cold War with Russia and China. So the idea of no negotiating, the idea of criticizing Biden for talking with Putin, where in a context where he couldn't even afford politically, it seems, to take a walk with Putin or have dinner with him. I don't think they broke bread. And what is that about now? I'm not sure that Biden, that may have been Biden's choice. It's part of his policy to some extent. But to encourage that and to criticize him for even talking to Putin is crazy. And it's the basic Cold War mentality of which I shared for a long time, for a decade, to equate Russia in those days, Soviet Union, with Hitler, in the sense that no negotiation was worthwhile or possible. There could be no agreement. They were determined on expansion at all costs. That was a hoax. That was a delusion. It was a lie. It had plausibility because Stalin was as ruthless as Hitler domestically, and as tyrannical, torture, everything else. But expansionist? No. In the case that he couldn't make agreements with him, absolutely not. That was not true of any of the Russian leaders since. And there's no reason to say that it's true now. And I was just reading a very interesting piece by Gareth Porter, a few years old, to my surprise, how open North Korea was earlier to real negotiations and agreements with the even the Bush administration. And before that, the Clinton administration, and how they were really on the verge of some serious agreements to stop missile development and nuclear development, deliberately sabotaged in particular by Cheney. And this was inside the administration. And this was news to me, that Cheney's, according to Gareth, main pressure on that was the anti-ballistic missile program. North Korea was being pushed, didn't have missiles then yet, or nuclear weapons at the beginning of this. But Rumsfeld and others were pushing, and Cheney were pushing the idea, we need anti-ballistic missiles because they will get missiles. Now, the cost of that was, so we had to demonize them. I just concluded the inference from that is that our anti-ballistic missile, led by Lockheed at that time, not only was willing to see North Korea get missiles and nuclear warheads, they needed that. I believe, I'm saying this now, this is a new perception. Maybe somebody will disabuse me of it later. But when I read that article, the implication of it is they wanted and needed North Korea to be a somewhat threatening nuclear power so we could defend against it at extreme cost in the anti-ballistic missiles. And I've long thought that was true of the ICBMs and others as a basis for our Cold War with Russia since the Soviet Union. How do you explain Trident submarines, new ones, and 14 of them, and hundreds of ICBMs and new ICBMs against Al-Qaeda? You have a problem. It's not an insuperable problem because they did manage to keep the spending up anyway after the end of the Cold War, supposedly. But a new Cold War was very convenient for those people who want to justify enormous defense spending. And those are not only Republicans, they're also a lot of Democrats. So I think you needed North Korea as somebody to defend against. By the way, anti-ballistic missiles can't defend against Russia. And they used to say under Johnson, well, we need them against China. They don't have very much, and an anti-ballistic missile will work against China. No longer true. So we can't justify ABMs against China. Where? Iran. Well, Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons yet. I am saying, okay, putting Israel aside here, which is saying a lot, I think they would like Iran to get nuclear weapons along with their ICBMs as another excuse, along with North Korea. And who else do they have to worry about? That's enough. I think there's another.
So Dan, just to say, I mean, one of the things that's sort of occurred to me over the years, one of the challenges in terms of building the movement and getting people to engage as they need, as they must, is a reluctance to recognize the evil, the nature of evil within our government and our state, and I think we have to do that if we're going to kind of make the kind of policies that we need. I also just want to say, before turning to David Schwartz here, who's been very patient, if he hasn't fallen asleep at this point, that he's awake. Just to say that Mass Peace Action has developed a working group which is trying to build movement around peace, reducing the dangers and the threats between the United States and China, but also with Russia. And the organization I'm associated with, the Committee for a Sane U.S.-China Policy, and I'll put the web page in there again. It has a tremendous number of resources, and we're working. People should be aware that there's an incipient coalition group of more than 65 organizations put out a statement addressed to Congress and the Biden administration, basically saying, no new Cold War. And the need to develop more peaceful relations with China.